I'm here with one of our rising stars, Jacob Landry, founder and president of Urban South. Welcome, Jacob.
Thanks, Zoe. Excited to be here with you.
Our Brewbound insiders are pretty familiar with you because we just did a round with talking about everything that's going on in Urban South. But for folks who didn't get to read that, let's start off just what if you had to you're in the elevator, meet someone, they see Urban South on your shirt, they want to know what it is. What's your spiel for them?
Yeah, we're an 8-year-old craft brewery in the heart of New Orleans, the second largest brewery in Louisiana behind Abita, 107th largest craft brewery in the country. We make beers that really meet every occasion for every drinker. And then most recently, we're in the THC seltzer business as well. So we try to cover all of our bases here in Louisiana.
You guys are doing hard tea now too, right? How's that going?
We do a hard tea as well. We do it as a partnership with Juvenile, the rapper. If anyone doesn't know who Juvenile is, just remember back that thing up from the late '90s, early 2000s. But it's a interesting category. It's dominated by just a few players. So we had some initial success, and we've certainly seen that kind of slow down a bit as the market consolidates around just a few hard tea makers.
The THC market is a hot topic, and we'll get to that in a minute here for sure. But first, I just want to talk about Urban South and the idea of it as like a brand and everything. You guys have a very cool aesthetic. It's very bright. It's colorful. It's vibrant. What is the message you try to convey about Urban South and who you are?
Well, even down to our name, it came about because as I was born in Louisiana and went to LSU and then left the state for a while. I taught elementary school in Hawaii and then recruited teachers in Seattle. And as my wife and I were trying to figure out where to settle, we thought about cities like New Orleans, like Nashville or Austin, and got to thinking about really what we were attracted us to all those types of places. And these were places where folks just kind of worked to live and didn't live to work. And really wanted to create a brand that embodied the culture and traditions of the urban South. We kind of wrestle with the dark history that exists in the South, as well as with the vibrant and excitement that is the modern South. And so we try to do that with the brand, both with the styles of beer that we make. You'll find most of them are on the lighter end of the spectrum because in the urban South it's pretty hot most of the year in most of our cities. And then also just in terms of the welcoming space, atmosphere, and branding, we from both our taproom space and down to the look of our cans, we want it to be really approachable and really welcoming.
For a lot of folks, I feel like they associate Louisiana and particularly New Orleans with a pretty robust drinking culture. But also might associate a lot with spirits because I know you got a lot of signature cocktails going on over there. But what's specifically the beer scene like in Louisiana?
Yeah, the beer scene it was a little late to the game compared to a lot of the rest of the country, and so we when we opened just 8 years ago, we were only the second brewery in the city, and so that was pretty unique and pretty cool opportunity to kind of bring what we'd seen throughout the rest of the country here. But it's growing. We do have some of the toughest laws in the country to operate a brewery under, and so I've worked for about a decade now to try to change those, but it's a real uphill battle. But otherwise, we're just great spaces to come and drink a beer. One of the changes that we were able to make legislatively at the very start of our brewery was to allow breweries to have tap rooms. It was a novel concept here. So the even just the tap room culture is only 8 years old. And that there we just have a lot to build on and still a lot of room to grow.
You guys have also looked to expanding yourselves in other places. Florida is that the most recent market for you all?
Yeah, so 2 years ago, we purchased a hospitality group in Florida, in Pensacola, Florida, that included a brew pub called Perfect Plain. Pensacola is only 3 hours from New Orleans. It's a big vacation beach destination for New Orleans residents. So it was pretty natural extension. We also loved the opportunity to build a new craft beer brand in a new market that was authentically local. And so we've been building out the Perfect Plain brand and distribution in Florida. So now we're able to kind of work on two separate brands in that market and kind of across the Gulf South. So we'll start bringing that brand back towards New Orleans as well. The other fun thing about the Florida project was because the brewery laws are a lot better in Florida, we were able to also have liquor licenses. And so with the hospitality group came three really cool and distinct bars. So we're now bar owners and in the cocktail scene, which is a lot of fun for someone like me who really enjoys a great cocktail just as much as I enjoy a great craft beer.
We're seeing a lot of folks dip their toes in other aspects of BevAlc, whether it's doing something with spirits, or now a lot of things happening with cannabis. So, can you talk through with us what you guys have been doing in that space?
Yeah, so 1 year ago, well, really it was December of 23, we launched a brand called Drifty, a THC seltzer at 5 milligrams of Delta 9 THC. Louisiana was relatively early in putting a framework together to manage THC consumable hemp. So we still have a lot of states surrounding us that still to this day have no state regulations on the books for it. So when Louisiana did that, it really legitimized the industry. We have a very large independent grocer here called Rouse's that was selling hemp seltzers. So that I think even just as much as the state laws and there being a framework, the fact that Rouse's started selling these really legitimized it and got it into the hands of just your average everyday grocery store shopper. So when we saw them get in the game, we figured it was a really great opportunity to move early in a new space. And that's gone incredibly well for us. This first year, we focused mostly on Louisiana. In the past few weeks, we've expanded to Mississippi, Alabama. We are sending seltzer and beer to Arkansas next week. And then we're working on opportunities in Texas, Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas. And so for us, it was just seeing the realities of craft beer and kind of the slowdown of growth there, we thought diversifying a bit would be a smart move, and we thought that the opportunity to get into a new category at the very beginning was a unique one that we really didn't have with some of the others, categories like canned cocktails or seltzers.
Have you found that the consumers of these products are they folks that are also drinking beer, or people who maybe drank beer before and are switching? Like, what does that consumer base look like?
There's definitely some crossover, but there's absolutely new consumers. I like to when I'm testifying in front of legislators, which we have to do a lot in this category. I tell them that this is a drink that their moms and daughters are drinking just as much as their sons might be drinking beer or high noon, and that's from personal experience. My mom's a fan. She's a 64-year-old who likes them to help her go to sleep, and she is absolutely not a beer drinker. And so that's a whole new demographic that we're reaching that we weren't reaching with our beer. And then someone like my sister is a school teacher and is looking to kind of cut down her alcohol usage, sees it as a opportunity to also kind of wind down in the evenings without the ramifications of alcohol. And so we see it in our own tasting room. We see folks kind of mixing it up where they might have had two beers. Now they might be having a beer and a THC seltzer.
You mentioned having to just to testify in front of some lawmakers. This is a area that is constantly changing. It feels like of just what regulations are around it and people's perceptions of it. So do you navigate trying to be a leader in that space while also you never know when one state might change their rules around it, and it can happen very quickly.
Yeah, there is a lot of uncertainty, and in Louisiana this past session, the bill that we fought against would have completely outlawed the sale of these products. We ended up with pretty big restrictions on them, but still a route to market. Um, and I think that fight is going to continue for a few years, or at least until the federal farm bill is reauthorized and there's a little more clarity from the federal government. But I think that's given smaller producers a real opportunity because I think the Anheuser-Busch's of the world are not getting into the space yet because of that uncertainty and because of the lack of any uniform regulations. So, on one hand, it's a challenge. On the other hand, I think it's exactly why we wanted to get into the business before we were immediately blocked out by some major and larger producers.
We've named you a rising star, and rising stars, it's typically because you're doing something right. You're finding growth, you're finding success in this market, which is particularly challenging right now. Um, I like to ask all of our rising stars if there is a piece of advice or something that you've been told that you think was really beneficial to your business, or that you think folks that are maybe a little smaller that want to get to where you are should know.
When we first opened, there were a lot of breweries growing quickly by kind of going pretty wide and pretty shallow in terms of distribution. And I think the timing was good for us to really see that we really had to own our own backyard. And so that was a very deliberate strategy that we took pretty early on. Instead of just chasing growth, we decided to own our backyard, to really you know, put some roots down with some core brands, to really learn how to work with our distributors. And we surrounded ourselves even internally with people who'd worked on the distributor side, to really focus on off premise and to focus on putting opportunities for consumers to grab our products in as many places as possible. So I think I attribute a lot of those focuses to our ability to grow and to really have sustainable growth. Even with a little bit of a retraction, we're seeing relatively minimal retraction of our brands, because I think that the growth that we've achieved has been really sustainable and really deeply rooted. And so I think, if anything, that's the biggest advice that I'd give.
Final question for you, Jacob. We're coming to the end of 2024, looking into this next year. What is some targets or like goals that you have for Urban South moving into 2025?
A lot of our targets going forward have to do with chain placements in some newer chains for us. So on one hand, we had this benefit of this large independent retailer in Louisiana that loves local and that really champions local brands. So we were able to grow on the backs of that. But as we move outside of Louisiana, we're confronted with chains like Publix and HEB that don't have any presence here, that don't know who we are, and we have to start really from scratch building our reputation with them. And so we had an opportunity to get into some public sets in Florida this past year. I think it's gone really well, and I think that a lot of our growth going forward is going to be contingent on us getting those opportunities in those big chains. And that's also driving our territory expansion as well, because when you're in a state like Florida, it it almost isn't worth the time to go into new territories unless you are in Publix, because that can easily be 50 to 60% of your volume.
Congratulations again on Urban South being named a rising star, and we can't wait to see what happens for the next basically decade for you guys.
Thanks a lot, Zoe. I appreciate the opportunity.